Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Want to welcome those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. Going to go ahead and bring in our friends over on Instagram that's joining us too today for our live broadcast. And we're going to connect with our friends over on Amazon. We have a first timer here on Amazon Live, even though I've had her on Conversations Live, the radio show. So I'm excited for you guys to be introduced to today's guest. We are now live on Amazon Live for Cyrus Webb Presents. Glad you all could join us for today's broadcast. If you guys are new to us on Amazon, welcome. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button. You'll see it either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the new book by our next guest. We're excited to welcome author Barbara Worton to our broadcast today. Barbara is someone I've known since her children's book that she wrote, Too Tall Alice, that I loved. She's now out with a brand new book this month, just as we're wrapping up National Reading Month. It's called CHATTERBOX. So this is a book that really takes into some great snippets into Barbara's life, some great observations. And I think there's something that all of us can be able to connect to. So if you guys have not gotten your copy of the book, make sure you guys do click on it and get your copy either in print or the Kindle edition of the book as well. Barbara, my friend, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. I'm very happy to be here, and it's nice to be in conversation with you again.
I appreciate that. I feel the exact same way. I want to thank those tuning in already over there on YouTube and X. So Barbara, this book was really interesting for me. When you first told me about ChatterBox, of course, and then, of course, you sent me an early copy to read in preparation for this segment. Then, of course, I bought it when it came out. What I thought was so fascinating is that you're someone we've gotten to know tell stories. Now we get to hear more about you. What has that been like for you to kind of open up to your audience and let them know more about your perspectives?
It's been a very interesting journey. I've loved it, and I've also been terrified by it at the same time. It's interesting to reveal yourself to the public, but I felt through the process of writing these stories, something great happened for me. And that whole process of writing them started through conversations with my friend Rochelle Udell when we were working on a project together. And she started telling me stories about her life, and I started telling her stories about my life, and that became a blog. And then once the stories were out there, I really wanted to move them beyond the blog format and into something that would be more permanent and I could share with people. Because what I found from people reading them on the blog is that personal stories really bring people together. And in the most personal of stories, someone sees something about themselves. And I very much like making that connection. So it's been a wonderful experience for me from the very beginning. And many people have been very kind to me, opened their hearts to me, listened to me, talked to me, and connected with me. And all those things are really important.
I thought it was funny, Barbara, after reading the book, and I'm going to say hello to Fish and Gale. Hello to you over there on Amazon. Thank you so much for the follow. Maria, hello to you. Glad you could be able to join us as well. Amazon customer, hello to you. Glad you could be able to join us as well. Make sure you guys, if you haven't gotten your copy of Barbara's book, to get it. But what I thought was so interesting was the title of the book, Barbara, CHATTERBOX. A lot of times people are given names like that, and it's not seen to be something that is always flattering. But you've been able to embrace this ability to not only to be able to enjoy sharing, but also the fact that you have an opinion. What has that been like for you to embrace, especially as your life has gone on?
Well, it's funny. The way the title of the book came together was I was talking with my friend Linda Dini Jenkins, and I had shown her all these stories that I wanted to put into this book. And I was trying to think about a title. And I kept going, oh my God, what is this really about? And I woke up in the morning and I was like, I got it. It's CHATTERBOX. That's what people used to call me when I was a kid. And then it took another, I don't know, month to come up with the subhead, Stories from a Noisy Life. But when I was a little kid, I used to talk incessantly. And I come from a long family, a big family of talkers. My mom is Italian American, and she and her entire family, they talked all the time. They talked all over each other. They always brought the kids into the conversation in some ways, but in other ways, when my uncles used to come to visit out on Long Island, I would be on them the minute they walked in the front door. And I had something to tell them, and I really wanted to tell them. And they used to sing that song to me from the 1960s, "You talk too much, you worry me to death." And I didn't stop me. I kept talking, but then eventually I got the hint and I would shut up. So they were the first ones who kind of penned that name for me, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
So I've lived with it my whole life, and I've come to understand that I think as much as it's like a name that has two sides to it, in my case, it might be an asset.
Well,
I'm
hey,
thinking of it that way.
yeah, especially in your profession, Barbara. So, Barbara, this book, there are some lighthearted moments in Chatterbox. There are also some very poignant moments, I felt like, as a reader, some very reflective moments. I was curious, though, for you. I mean, you mentioned your parents. One of the, as soon as you mentioned them, I thought about one of the stories you share in the book was about your parents telling you about moving to Alaska. Uh, and you know it, and you feel like your dream was answered because that didn't happen, but your mother ended up having something else happen, and our readers will be able to tell what that is when they are able to read the book. Did you feel that? Did you feel the different emotions as you were writing the book, or how did you decide what stories or recollections or reflections you wanted to share?
I definitely felt all the emotions about that story, about all the stories. In fact, writing these stories helped me work through a lot of emotions that, you know, you don't necessarily resolve in your life, no
Yeah,
matter how old you are.
yeah,
And some of these stories about things that happened to me when I was 3, 4, 5, and north to Alaska happened to me when I was about 10 or 11.
mm,
And I just could be that kid, that 11-year-old kid, hearing that my parents were thinking about moving to Alaska and knowing that I didn't want to go.
yeah,
Writing these stories also has helped me to see life from my parents' perspective a little differently than I have in the past, or certainly as I did in the moment when I was living these stories.
mhm,
Um, some of the stories, some of the more poignant ones, helped me to work through pain that I can't completely shake off.
yeah,
I think we all have that in life.
right,
And one of the reasons why I'm such a chatterbox is when something really gnaws at me, I need help from other people. I need to connect with someone else, tell them what I'm going through, hear what they think about it. And then sometimes I can move on. Sometimes I just feel like I've been listened to and maybe loved by the person who listened to me. And
yeah,
that really helps a lot.
yeah. You mentioned that, and I think there's a couple of the recollections in Chatterbox. I want to say, and I see you guys coming in over there on YouTube. You guys have any questions or comments for Barbara? Put those in the chat. I'll be filtering through those. But I love the fact one of the lines that I made a mental note of, Barbara, was one that I think a lot of our audience can relate to, and it is promises are like bubbles. And I think a lot of times we make promises to ourselves, right? We make promises to others. There's a one story in the book where a trip you weren't able to make, that regret of
Yes.
not being able to make a certain trip, right? And those feelings that come with that. What did you know that these were going to also be teachable moments in many ways? Yet there are some things that will make us smile and laugh, but there were going to, I think, as a reader, I felt these teachable lessons you've been able to share in this book too. Was that also part of your hope?
Yeah, I it's a little bit of a confessional in that story. It's one of the things that I don't think I'll ever resolve, how badly I feel about it. I'm many years older than I was when it happened,
Sure.
but it's one of those things that I just feel like I let somebody down, somebody who really mattered to me, my mom and my
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
And um, as an older person now, I understand more about not taking parents for granted and not assuming that people who you love are going to be there forever.
Hmm.
And the need to actually say what really matters in the moment is critical,
Hmm.
because everybody wants to be loved and celebrated, I guess it might be a word, and know that they meant something. And
Right.
sometimes I feel like when you break a promise to someone, it's like saying, well, it was okay in the moment, but right now, doesn't matter so much. And maybe it hurts them even more deeply than it does, because it has that moment of like, well, I guess this person just said to me, I don't mean enough. And if there's any teachable lesson in that for me, it's to uh, hopefully never, ever make someone in your life feel like they don't mean enough.
Yeah, I love that. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Represents or listening to it as Cyrus Represents on WYAD or on iHeart and Amazon Music. Barbara Worton is our guest today. Hello to you. I think it's pronounced Juliana. Hello to you over there on Amazon. Glad you could join us as well. Barbara is joining us today talking about her book, Chatterbox Stories from a Noisy Life, that's available now in print. You guys can see it there in the carousel over on the Amazon side. That's what I got here. Or you can be able to get the Kindle edition as well. Storytelling is one of those things, Barbara, that you do so well. And that, again, comes back to how I started this conversation. I got to know you from your children's book. What has it been like for you to kind of build your audience and build your tribe from book to book?
It's a lot of hard work. It is an extraordinary amount of hard work. And this time out with Chatterbox, I think I'm doing it better than I ever have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very lucky in that I connected with Susan Schatt Press, who have built relationships for me across the publishing industry, and connected me with Jacob Starr, who's helping me with marketing and social media and building a brand. Last time out, I really didn't know all that much about how to do that. I did it to a certain extent, and Too Tall Alice did well, sold well, but it was not the same. I guess seriousness that I'm taking this with, is much greater than what I did back then. In between Too Tall Alice and this, a lot changed in my life. I got a super high powered job from the point of being very, very, very busy. Not that I had so much tremendous authority or power, but I was busy all the time. So my writing in many ways suffered. And when I got into doing the blog with Rochelle and working on her book for her, with her, it was an opportunity to start hearing myself again, hear my own voice, and discover what it is that I really think and feel. And I honestly, Cyrus, I think there's a part of me that's sort of always telling the same story over and over again, in different phases of that story, about being not so sure who you are, not so sure where you fit, wanting to understand what's going on around you. And so to me, while this is a book aimed at a different market and a different age group, obviously, I think there are threads between that and Too Tall Alice that are undeniable.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Embracing your own uniqueness, I think, is one of them for sure. And I think also one thing we see in Chatterbox from you, Barbara, that I don't think we've seen before is, you don't know unless you ask. I mean, whether it's something simple like how do you clean your belly button? you know, you know, I mean, to that other thing that I thought was one of the big parts of the book for me, which it kind of was a theme, and that is the importance of family. You talk about that throughout the book, whether it's spending time with family or appreciating that. I think the big takeaway from me though is the importance of enjoying the moment, because we don't know how many of those moments we will have. Was that part of the nostalgia of this book for you, Barbara? Thinking about the times you had with your family, the good times, drinking a soda, or being able, to not look forward to going back to school, but enjoying that time that you had.
Yeah, it was. But I lost my mom in 2005 and my dad in 2008. And everybody says, you don't know how much you're going to miss them till they're gone.
Right.
And it's true. It really is. And when I looked back on all the things that happened in life, sometimes we remember the weird stuff and the stuff that we were like, well, why did they do that? I don't like that. Working with Rochelle, I came to understand that everything they did with me and for me was the best that they knew how to do. That's what we all do. We are all the best person we can be at a given point in our life. We are all our own collective experiences and our knowledge, and you only know what you know. So, they gave me the best of them. And I came to understand that. I also came to understand that they were really funny. I mean, they gave me some of my best material, and I mean funny in sometimes a little peculiar ways, like everybody is. We're all a little nuts, right? And so I tried to weave that through those stories.
I think too, to think about the simpler times, when a lot of times some may see it as boring. Reading about it in the book Chatterbox, it makes you kind of long for those times when we didn't have as much distractions. What has that been like for you? Because the subtitle of the book being Stories from a Noisy Life. What was it like for you to kind of to cut through that noise, Barbara, and to just think about what you had and the times you enjoyed?
Well, I grew up in a very noisy family. My friend Linda her family was very quiet, and she used to come to my house to visit because she liked the chaos and all the noise. So, it's like opposites attract, I guess.
Yeah.
Cutting through the noise happens to me whenever I write. It's a moment that takes me someplace that I just don't find, like sitting in a room and watching TV, or sometimes even in a social situation. Not that I don't love social situations. I'm a very social person. I love people. But writing is something really private just for me. And I do turn out the noise in my head. Getting a story started sometimes means letting the noise in, because most of my stories start from a single line or a memory, or I'll look at a towel rack and I'll see something that'll say to me, oh my goodness, that towel reminds me of, ABCD, or a line of something that someone said to me will pop in my head. And then with that one line, if I sit myself down and I find quiet, I build a whole story, a whole world out of that.
Yeah.
And I like that place. I'm comfortable in that place. That place makes me happy.
I mentioned earlier it's National Reading Month that we're wrapping up this month, Barbara, and I want to ask you about voice. You mentioned yourself about even the connection, the through line with Too Tall Alice. Then, of course, there's bedtime stories. You didn't think I forgot about that one, did you? And then, of course, now we have Chatterbox. When did you start trusting your voice? I think for the aspiring writers out there, I think there are people sometimes who feel like they have a gift, but maybe it's not something that's encouraged by others. What helped you to not only to discover that voice that you have, Barbara, as a writer, but to trust that voice?
Well, I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of people who have been with me for my writing life. And starting as young as when I was I can't even remember if it was middle school or the first year of high school, when a teacher encouraged me, because I wrote a story about a pancake my mother burnt for breakfast. And then in my first 2 years of college, my English teacher was a bit of a brute, but she liked people who liked to write. And she took me on as a project, I think. And then later on, I found a number of professors who liked what I had to say, liked the way I said it, recommended me for advanced degree programs, grants, all kinds of things. And that was the beginning of me kind of believing myself. I don't think, however, that I really came to believe in myself until I was well into my 40s. And that grew out of doing this piece that I did that I mentioned before with Linda Dini Jenkins If I'm talking, why aren't you listening?
Mm.
That was a choreo poem performance art piece that started at the West Bath Gallery, this down in Soho. And that is how I met my friend Rochelle. And that from there, a whole world opened to me. I started writing on a variety of different topics, and I went freelance as a writer. And in that process, I found that people actually liked to read what I had to say, even if it wasn't about me or my stories that I made up or whatever. When I wrote to people any on topics, they responded, and that helped to build my confidence and for me to feel like I did have a voice. I will tell you, Cyrus, the tone in which I write, um, I don't think has changed much since I very first started writing.
Mm.
I've always tried, and now it kind of really comes naturally, to write as I speak.
Mm.
Jacob posted something on LinkedIn yesterday that he described my stories as life experience meeting poetry. And that made me so happy because I think that sums it up. That's what I'd like to think I sound like.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, it's a great book, Barbara. For those who are just discovering Barbara Worton, this is a great introduction for you. Again, Chatterbox is the book. Stories from a Noisy Life, available now on Amazon. Barbara also has waded more into the social media waters, so you guys can also find her on Instagram. But Barbara, let our audience know your website and how to stay connected with you.
Sure. My website is barbara@barbaraworton.com. My Instagram is @BarbaraIsChatterbox. And my email is barbara@barbaraworton.com.
There you go. Just made it very easy for you guys. Barbara, congratulations to you again. So glad we had a chance to chat. I know we're going to be talking on the radio dial as well, but looking forward to our next conversation together.
Thank you. Me too, Cyrus. It's always great to talk to you.
Same here. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.